Breitman here from the Scarlet Faithful. Moments after Rutgers suffered one of the toughest, worst losses, in quite some time. I can't quantify it right now. Certainly one of the worst losses of Greg Schiano's tenures at Rutgers. I think it's the worst loss since his return, just because of the magnitude or the importance of this game, the impact that a win would have had on this program, going to 4-2, getting a Big Ten win, going into the bye week with Indiana coming in. The path for a bowl is right there. I wrote this morning that this was an identity game to me. People called it a must-win. People said, that this was a prove you belong in the Big Ten game. I really didn't look at it either way, and it may have been the case for both, but the way I looked at it was this was a true identity maker of a game. You're now midway through the third season for Greg Schiano's second tenure, and you are what your record is, and you are what your results are, and this is the 21st straight home loss to a Big Ten team. It's a huge weight on this program's shoulders, and they had every opportunity to get rid of that tonight, and they could not do it. They were their own worst enemy. This is 100% on the coaching staff, in my opinion. Listen, Greg Schiano does a lot of positive things for this program. He's turned this program around to a certain degree. He I don't need to get into the positives. I think we all know what those are. But tonight we saw the negatives, and this team they self-destructed, and 9 penalties to 97 yards. Nebraska had 9 penalties too, but they were for 67 yards. But it was just the late hit. As Aaron Lewis was amazing tonight. I hate to give him any criticism at all, but that roughing the passer penalty, even though he did try to let up at the last minute, that started the whole momentum in the second half for Nebraska. That really hurt them. And then, Kassan Abraham, another great veteran who's, done a lot of good things for the program. That twist and turn out of bounds for, Nebraska, it was 4th down. They were going to have to punt. Rutgers was going to get the ball back with about 4 minutes to go. And you get, a penalty like that, 15 yards in the first down, absolute killers. You had on the quarterback sneak on 4th down with Simon. They rushed it, and they actually called it on Dunlap, I believe, the false start. And it was, I think it was actually on Ireland Brown, the center. Those kind of penalties are inexcusable, and Rutgers just continues to make those kinds of mistakes, shooting themselves in the foot. And time after time in this game, Evan Simon threw 3 interceptions. He has a real issue. He sticks with his first option. He doesn't read the defense. He's not able to adjust. That 3rd interception to me was like as clear as day. He was just so focused on that first option, even when it wasn't even remotely there. He still threw it. And I know fans are going to jump all over him. Listen, the kid has played really hard, and the coaching staff, in my opinion, has done him no favors. The constant rotation tonight, Noah Vedral, my heart really feels for him. No one wanted to win more tonight against Nebraska than Noah Vedral. He obviously made plays on that first drive. Huge, big, completion early in the game against to Shamin Jones. He had another big throw to Sean Ryan later on. He had that big touchdown run. Clearly not healthy. Wimsatt was not healthy enough to go tonight. They had to stick with Simon. But for me, a big part of the coaching staff was that, you have the lead in the 4th quarter. You're in your own territory. And you have Sam Brown running the football. Did not get the football enough. I think he had 15 carries. He averaged over 4 yards a carry. Wasn't quite as effective as he was against Ohio State, but, they really, again, quarterback and running back, they're not letting anyone get into a rhythm. They're not giving, and these rotations are just disjointed. So in Simon's defense, I really don't think they've done him any favors, especially tonight. just in terms of the way they rotated him in and out in the middle of, when you run the ball with one quarterback for 2 plays, first and second down, and then you bring him in for third down to throw, it's really not fair, to be honest with you. It's a tough spot for a kid that isn't that experienced. Maybe if it's 2 veteran quarterbacks, going back and forth, but even then, it just seems counterproductive. And then you have, going back to that point, you have the lead, you're in your own territory, you have Sam Brown to run the ball, and you have Adam Korsak to punt the ball, and you have a lead. Don't throw the ball. Play conservative. If they play conservative and lost, it still would sting. Don't get me wrong, but to make those kind of unforced errors with the penalties, and then to throw, and I'm referring specifically to the second interception that Simon made in the game, which was also in the fourth quarter. That to me, that was the killer, because you have a lead, you have a running game. Nebraska's not great against the run, and you have the best punter in the world. So even if you don't get a first down there, punt the ball back to Nebraska. They'll get it on their 20, maybe 25, maybe even 30, and trust your defense. Your defense played their guts out tonight. The Rutgers defense played great. They gave up a short field touchdown to lose the game. Nebraska was on the 27, I believe. And they gave up, that touchdown drive to start the second half, which had 2 15-yard penalties, stupid plays. The Rutgers defense did not get beat tonight. And, this is as good of a defense as Rutgers had in a long time. Joe Harasimiak, I think, has been as good as advertised. I think the Rutgers defense has made progress this season. I think Nebraska, they came in. They're a mess, but their offense, they averaged over 30 points a game coming in. Casey Thompson, transferred from Texas. He's had good games. Anthony Grant had 600 yards coming into the game, and was mostly contained. I don't even remember what his final stat line was, but Rutgers did a great job containing the Nebraska offense. You hold a team like that to 14 points, you have to win the game. So we knew trouble was there at halftime. They dominated the first half and they're up 13-0. Let's go back to that a little bit. I know I'm rambling. I'm trying to stay as measured as possible. In the first half, Max Melton blocks the punt. You have the ball on the 9-yard line. You're up 7-0. You can smell blood. And the play calling in that series was questionable at best. I tweeted right after, again, I'm going to ride the Sam Brown train, but they didn't give him one carry. Give Sam Brown the ball, run it down their throats until they stop you. If you run it in that situation, first and second down, that's what you have to do in that situation. And they didn't, and they kicked a field goal. So listen, you're up 10-0, not the end of the world, but needed a touchdown. When you get the ball on the 9-yard line, you got to score a touchdown. Then later in the half, end of the half, there was another drive, the penalties killed them. And then you're driving late in the half, and I forget which down it was, but Simon got sacked. I think it was second down. He didn't have much time. I don't know if he had enough time to throw it away or not. You can't get sacked in that situation. But again, that goes back to, why'd you call the pass play? You're already in field goal position. The clock is running down. At that point, you kick that field goal, you're up 16-0. And guess what? Might have been the difference. That might have been the ball game right there. He takes the sack. They still try to kick the field goal anyway. Jude McAtamey, he had made 2 earlier. He kicked one from 40 yards. I believe he was 9 for 11 up to that point in the season. He's turned out to be pretty good. I told people I thought he would. And you know what? That 58-yarder was really, really close from going in. He had the distance. It went wide right barely. And you know what? That decision alone, not to run, they took the sack, they forced a 58-yard field goal, barely miss. You lose by 1 point. That's killer. The punt, you get it on the 9-yard line. You get a field goal. You leave 4 points on the board. You lose by 1. So as much as the offense was pretty bad in the second half, you could very much argue that the game was lost in the first half. As well as Rutgers played and the defense dominated Nebraska, they lost the game just in terms of, I think, decision-making, play calling. But then we saw in the second half, Rutgers get tight and the pressure got to them, I think. If you build a bigger lead in the first half, you set yourself up for success in the second half. And Nebraska did, they missed that field goal going into halftime. Nebraska goes down. It's, I believe, third down. Aaron Lewis gets called for that late hit. I forget what the other penalty was on that drive. Nebraska scores. Of course, it's Travis Vokalek. Rub salt in the wounds. Former Rutgers player. And then you sensed everyone in the stadium got tight. Everyone, even the fans. No fault to the fans whatsoever. They did their best. And, then they just started to unravel. The bad penalties, the lack of discipline on this team. When you have two good veterans that make those kind of penalties, I mean, that's pretty bad. And I don't want, criticism on them as much as it really is the coaching staff, just in terms of how this team unraveled. And timeouts, both halves. Rutgers ran out of timeouts with like 4 minutes to go. I mean, I get it. Someone very funny in tweeting at me that, am I new here? Because I made a comment how bad the timeout management was, and that, it was obviously a knock on Shiano on the first go round. But tonight was bad. I mean, and both cases, it hurt them. You can't run out of timeouts. And then in the second half, it was 2 timeouts in a row. It was a timeout in a dead ball situation. I have to go back and look. People were asking. I don't even know what happened. I don't ever remember that happening. It probably has, but I don't remember it. And timeout management was bad. Lack of discipline. Too many penalties. They did get 2 turnovers in the first half. Couldn't take advantage. Then they commit 3 turnovers on their own in the second half. I don't know. This is as bad of a loss as I can remember, just in terms of, I remember, if there is hope, I remember feeling really bad and really down about this team last year when they lost at Northwestern. They went into the bye week. They lost 4 in a row after the 3-0 start, and they looked terrible against Northwestern. Northwestern was not good. I thought the season was over. They came out of the bye week. They beat Illinois on the road, and then they beat Indiana on the road. And then they ended up, with help of COVID, they got to the Gator Bowl. So I was wrong, and I'm sure most fans were. So if there's any positive out of this, as much of a nail in the coffin on the bowl chances that this loss feels like right now, you have Indiana coming out of the bye. That's a get well game right there. That you absolutely, at this point, regardless of what happens after that game, it might be the only game they win the rest of the season. This home losing streak in the Big Ten play is a huge weight on this program that is just, it's baffling, and listen, I looked at this morning. I mean, Ash owns 10 of those. Shiano owns now 11. And I'll just rehash it just in case someone, says, oh, you're not being fair. There's no question. Shiano's made the program better. He inherited the worst Power 5 program in America from Chris Ash. No doubt. But we're definitely at a point now where there should be some concern. Is the program, what is the ceiling now? Things have certainly been tough this year with injuries. Wimsatt's development has been thrown off. Vedrill's been hurt all year. So that is a definite factor that is only fair to be considered when you're judging the coaches. What would it have been like if we were going with Wimsatt and Vedrill the whole time this season? Could have been better. Things are not working right now. Again, I'm trying to stay as emotionally level as possible and be as fair as possible. But, this loss is 100% on the coaching staff. Everything needs to be reevaluated in the bye week. Everything. The defense is don't touch the defense. But offensively, Sean Gleason, I mean, at Princeton and at Oklahoma State, had really good modern offenses. And Rutgers does not have that. And I'm not quite sure why. Yes, personnel-wise, it's, partly to blame. But just conceptually, things feel different. And, even in this game, though, aside from the whole, modern concepts, the fact that they had the best running back in the game, Sam Brown. The kid is legit. I think he's a star. I mean, if you saw that one carry he had, I think it was the start of the second half, the first possession of the second half, and there was nothing there. And he didn't panic, and he ended up getting a first down on one carry because he waited and he was patient enough and he had the burst to get there. So I just think personnel-wise, I don't know if we're trying to do a square peg into a round hole or what, but everything should be looked at. I never do this with notes, but there's just so much that happened in this game. I just wanted to see if I'm missing anything. But again, for me, I think Vedral being hurt in this game certainly hurt them. If Vedral was healthy the whole game, I think they win. As bad as the coaching staff was, I think they win with a healthy Vedral. And I will. It's also fairness, that bad pass interference call on Sean Ryan that should have been a first down that they got called back. That was a terrible call. There were certainly some bad calls in this game, but at the end of the day, this team underperformed. They fell apart, and it's on the coaching staff. And everything needs to be reevaluated. I'll have plenty more analysis. I hope this video is, therapeutic in some way. I didn't want to come on here, and I'm not angry. I'm just, this is disappointment at the highest level. And I'm sure all Rutgers fans feel the same. Thank you for watching once again.